some people also ask me, but I don't believe in it, or why should I trust in Bitcoin? There is nothing behind it. It's not real money.
Yeah, no, I think it's a valid point, you know, but I think there you have to take a step back, you know, always have to ask, whatever you do in life, there's always trust involved, you know. Now we're walking on the street and we're talking to each other, and I mean, a car could come by and could run us over. We have to trust that no car is coming, you know. So there's always trust involved.
That he stops at least.
Yeah, that he stops at least, you know. But maybe we hear him and then we can step aside. But there's always trust involved with everything you do, you know. And with Bitcoin, as I tried to explain earlier, it's just that the trust that you're having is in math and cryptography and technology itself, you know. And that's kind of still weird for us today because, yeah, I personally think that's just a human trait, you know. You want to have a face that you can trust, you know. That's also again with Satoshi Nakamoto, because you don't know who's behind it. So these are all these things that naturally are hard, and Bitcoin has to overcome these. But I think in the long run, you know, because Bitcoin is so decentralized and it will keep proving that nobody can attack it, you know, that these 21 million, that's something I haven't explained yet, that Bitcoin is really, it's fixed to 21 million coins, you know, there will never be more coins,
there's a maximum amount
there's a maximum amount of Bitcoin, you know.
Like there is a maximum amount of gold in the world.
Yes, exactly. So that's also interesting, you know, and we can come back maybe in a later question what that has as a consequence, you know. But all these parameters that are set, you know, if Bitcoin keeps on proving this, you know, and it gets older and older and it's still here and it hasn't been attacked successfully, I think people will naturally then be inclined to
the car that's trusted.
Yeah, exactly. Here it is. Yeah, great. It has. You know, and I mean, yes, exactly. So at some point, people will probably grow into trusting Bitcoin more and more, because today, also with the internet, you know, everyone is using the internet, but even most people don't understand what they're doing, you know, and why does it work, you know, and nobody knows how the internet actually works under the hood. But nevertheless, you use it because it's just convenient. And I think it will probably be the same with Bitcoin. In a couple of years, the adoption will be there and people will be using, because they will see it has benefits for me, as for the women we discussed, you know, and they will be using it even though they don't understand it and they don't know, can I trust it fully, because I understand every single thing within it. So yeah, that's probably going to be.
It's the same with the current financial system. We also use banks. We have bank accounts.
Yes.
But not everyone understands how the financial system actually works.
Not at all.
And yet we trust in it.
Yeah. And it's always that if you have a legacy, and I mean, with the financial traditional institutions, I would argue they keep on like misusing that trust, you know, in many countries, like maybe not here in Switzerland, but in Venezuela and Syria and North Korea and all these countries, you know, there the financial system is not working anymore. It's completely broke, you know, and then people try to look for alternatives. And that's why also Bitcoin is very popular in these countries, you know, because they say it's another system and it's potentially something
I don't have to trust in my government.
Yes, I can trust it into the code, you know, and I think that's a new alternative, as we discussed, that we have, and it is a revolution, I would think.
And the third and last question that I received is, what does actually influence the price of Bitcoin? Because there is no national bank, no government behind it that controls it and has an influence in it. We see the prices go up like crazy, like recently, and then it drops again, it's very volatile. What does influence the price?
Well, I mean, in the end, I would argue it's, again, fundamentally, just as with everything, it's demand and supply and demand, you know. So if there's more demand than supply, and as we discussed, Bitcoin is fixed, you know. So when there's much or a lot of demand, you can't artificially enhance the supply, you know. So hence the price will go up, you know. And if demand really slackens and nobody is interested in Bitcoin, like the price falls again, you know. So it's just demand and supply, and in the end, I mean, this can be influenced by so many factors, you know. I mean, for example, if Bitcoin had like a problem on its technological layer, you know, and it's still software and it's still technology, another car, yes, and we don't know if maybe in 10 years time there will be a bug in the Bitcoin code. We don't know.
Yeah.
That could still be the case, you
Yes,
know,
yeah.
and that could potentially then disrupt the system. And I mean, people would lose trust and they would flee from it, and the price would collapse, you know. But I mean, if that is not the case, and it keeps on proving itself as we discussed, you know, then I could imagine that, because like in the traditional world, so much money is being created, you know, by central banks. If now they want to try to really get the economy going again in the US, you know, the government is spending that much, you know, all this money. I mean, people are wondering, okay, what is happening to all my assets, and will my cash even be worth something? So they will potentially put it into Bitcoin, you know, also as an alternative asset, diversification, as an asset that can potentially protect them from this money printing, and that can also then influence the price, you know. And I think the recent run up that we saw over New Year, you know, where Bitcoin went to 42K, you know, I think that's really something because of that, because institutions and more people recognized, okay, governments are just printing money, you know, like crazy, and I somehow have to protect my assets and diversify, and that's why I'm going to look for an investment that can help me with that, and they found Bitcoin, you know. So I think these are the things that will keep on pushing the Bitcoin price up and down. Because it will always be a volatile asset. I think that's for sure. But I mean, if you have a long time horizon, you know, and maybe as a Bitcoin investor, you have to have this. Or at least you're a day trader who really understands the thing, you know.
Yeah.
But if you're a normal person, also like me, who doesn't really understand everything and just says, okay, you know, I see this Bitcoin thing, I have understood it, or at least a little bit, you know, I'm trusting it now, and I buy some and I hold it for 2, 3, 4, 10 years, you know, and see what happens, you know. And
so
I think
it's more like a long term.
Yes, it's more like a long-term thing, because as I try to explain, it's really a new revolutionary thing that needs to develop, that will probably develop into a new financial system. So if this is going to happen, I mean, yeah, it takes time, but then it will be a bigger thing in the end, you know, because it powers a new system. So you can almost be sure that probably the price will be higher. So you can already buy today, just hold, and then maybe potentially sell later. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Pascal.
Yeah. Thank you.
Again, just as a reminder, this is the book. I highly recommend it. It's an easy read in terms of, because it's entertaining. Everyone understands it. Even my father has one. So if he can read it, you can too. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.